We all want to be a part of something that's great. We all want to be great in some area. Or at least be able to tag along and be in it in some other way. We all have a collective sigh of regret. Okay, let's just have a little confession time here. We all had a little moment of regret when we first heard about Coach Petrino, didn't we? And let's just be honest. What was the first thing that went through your mind? Was it his family and his marriage? You know, I'm up here, I'm being straight with you. The first thing that went through my mind, shit, man, this was the year. That was the first thing that went through my mind. Because this was our year to be great. This was our year. You know, we still think maybe, but then after a little bit we went, okay, wait a second. You're gonna get real here. This poor guy, his world just fell apart. He made some really, really bad decisions. We need to cover that family in prayer. This greatness, I don't think we should feel that bad about wanting to be great either. In fact, I think we got this pretty much straight away from our Maker. He embodies greatness. He didn't invent it, He is it. Everything that is great is in Him. He envelops greatness. But His idea of greatness and our idea of greatness come to a ruthless, abrupt stop really, really, really quick. In fact, Jesus actually said that in this idea of greatness, in His kingdom, there are some that will be least, and there are some who will be the greatest. Jesus used these words in His kingdom. So that kind of begs the question here, where are you going? What are you saying? And this takes us to the second leg of our 3-leg series on mission. We've spent some time talking about love, and man, I want to be a Johnny One Note on this. I want you guys, I want you love, serve, multiply, love, serve, multiply. I want you to be able to say that in your sleep. Love, serve, multiply. And people say, well, what exactly is the mission of City Point Church? Love, serve, multiply. We love God and we love others. When we serve the city, we serve God by serving this city. Then we're trying to do everything we can to pour into more churches to find more people. Multiply. Love, serve, multiply. We spent a lot of time the last couple of Sundays talking about what it really means to love God, what it really means to love our fellow man. So now we're on this second leg. His serve business. What does it mean to serve? What did Jesus have to say about serving? You know, it's kind of interesting because the New Testament writers actually describe Christ's followers more as servants than as disciples and Christians combined. That's pretty significant. We're known as servants. And there's a couple of references. Pop that first one up, Steve. This is Galatians chapter 5 and verse 13. It says, "You, my brothers, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. Rather, serve one another in love." So evidently we've got this freedom to choose to live the kind of life we want to lead. Our sins have been taken away. The chains are gone. We've been proclaiming that this morning. Now you get to choose. You get to choose, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Man chooses his direction, but God directs his steps. Isn't that right? So we've got freedom. We've got freedom to live how we want, but it says, don't use those freedoms just to indulge the sinful nature. No, use your freedom to serve. You get to use this to make a difference. Isn't that why people, even who don't believe in Jesus, haven't you noticed that people that don't believe in Jesus find a deeper meaning in life when they pour it out? When they pour it out in service? It might not have anything to do with Christ at all, but they sleep better at night because there's something inside of them that was made to give. That's part of the DNA we received from the Maker. So this freedom that we have, it's not just to indulge and do whatever we want. No, it's to serve. And there's something that hits way down at the core of our being. When we serve, that makes things kind of start lining up. 4:10, check this out. Each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others. Goes on to talk about administering that grace to others. That's why we've been given what we've been given. It's not just so that you can do it for whatever you want. No, it's there for someone else. You've been given this so that others will benefit. There's another one of these verses. They're all through the New Testament. You talk about a cool word study. Just look up the word serve or service and just look at every reference. Kind of map it out a little bit. It's a great study. There's one that's tucked away in a letter that was written to a bunch of Christians in Corinth. And the Apostle Paul was writing this letter. It's in the 4th chapter, the 1st verse. Look what it says on this. This is cool. It says, "Others ought to regard us as servants of Christ and as those entrusted with the secret things of God." Now, I think that's just a cool verse because It describes us as servants that are entrusted with a secret. And that secret is mentioned just a couple of verses before. At the end, it was written like a letter. It wasn't written with all these chapters and verses, but so that we can kind of know where we are and where we're talking about. It talked about that secret in the end of chapter 3. Look at 1 Corinthians 3:21. All things are yours, and you are of Christ, and Christ is of God. So the key to unlock the whole secret is Jesus. In fact, He is a secret. It's Him. The whole thing is wrapped up in this one person that embodies God Himself. You take all of God and you put Him in one human form, and you've got Jesus. All of the radiance of God comes out and shows up Jesus. God's invisible. He's spirit, but when He walks in front of the mirror, the image that comes back is Jesus. So He's the secret. So if we're called to serve, and this service has something to do with the secret, and this has something to do with the kingdom, how in the world does all of this relate to greatness? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because there's a great, great story in Jesus' life that pulls all of these concepts together. And it's a funny story. It's a story when a mom comes up to Jesus with her two boys hiding behind her apron strings. Her two boys were named James and John. And so this woman comes up, and most scholars think that this woman was Salome, which happens to be Mary, Jesus' mother, happens to be Mary's sister. Are you getting the connections here? This is Aunt Salome coming up to nephew Jesus, with first cousins James and John right behind her. This is a cool story. So here comes Mom, here comes Aunt Salome, and she walks up here to Jesus, and she says, hey, I need to talk to you about my two sons. I'm having an idea that what happens in her request is we start getting to see what she really thinks about greatness. It's funny, I think, how this happens too, because I think James and John might have even planted the thought in their mom's head, but they didn't have the guts to do it. And they may have even thought, Mom, you're his aunt. Jesus won't be able to say no to his aunt. You go and ask for us. They wanted to sit at the right and the left. So here comes Aunt Salome up to nephew Jesus, saying, Jesus, you got two of my sons here, and they're kind of following you along, and I have an idea how they can kind of play out in your kingdom. And her idea of greatness was all wrapped up in power and authority. It was all to see what you could get for yourself. It was completely about being self-centered. She didn't want her boys just following Jesus. She wanted some other people following her boys. She wanted them to have positions of honor. So when she makes this request, it absolutely flies all over the other disciples, because they were positioning themselves for the same thing. And they thought, man, Aunt Salome comes in speaking for James and John. They don't even have the guts to stand on their own. And she does. Oh man, everybody. This temper starts flying. Jesus has to call everybody back in, settle everybody down, and remind them what's going on. Okay, we've got to read this text. But we'll pick up Matthew's account. Matthew chapter 20, beginning with verse 20. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down, asked for favor of him. What is it you want? That's Jesus asking them. She said, grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right, the other at your left in your kingdom. You don't know what you're asking, Jesus said to them. Can you drink the cup I'm going to drink? Now look who answers. Now James and John said, we can do it. We can drink that cup. Of course, Jesus is God too. He's 100% man, 100% God. And we can't understand that. That just flew all over our heads, so we just say, okay. But God, Jesus, now says, you will indeed drink from that cup. He was able to see that they would, and without dying a self-sacrificial death. But to sit at my right hand, my left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father. When the 10 heard about this, look at the reaction of the other guys. They were indignant with the two brothers. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. You're not like those worldly leaders. Come on, guys. I'm telling you about a new kingdom, a different kingdom. You instead, not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be the first must be your slave. The first word, servant, that's that word deacon. That just means somebody that's there to really kind of help bring order and things. The next one, the slave, the doulos, that's a bond slave. That's somebody that's owned. That's somebody that doesn't have a choice. Use some real strong words here. Now picking up in verse 28. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Funny thing about greatness. In this kingdom of light, we're not talking about the kingdom of darkness. We're not talking about the kingdom of this world. We're talking about this kingdom that Jesus came to establish. A kingdom that's not of this world. In this kingdom of light, when it comes to greatness, the way up is down. You go down. The way over is under in humility. No one ascends into greatness. Even Jesus' ascension himself, that only happened after what? After he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. There is no ascension in the kingdom of God unless there is first a descension. So greatness is not found in exalting self. Greatness is found in humbling self. So the bottom line, the principle that we get from what we just read, number one, is greatness in this kingdom that has no end is found in giving up personal rights and serving others. In other words, what makes us tick as followers of Jesus, if we're getting serious about saying, okay, he's it, he's my master, what makes us tick is not seeking others' admiration, but instead it's seeking ways that we can serve other people. So we're born to serve. And to serve or not to serve isn't the question. The issue is, how much service can I get in before I'm dead? That's the bottom line. I've got a little bit of life. I'm way over halfway. I mean, if God, I'm eating way too much fat. My content is probably likely in the 70s. And maybe God will let me go to the 80s. Dude, I'm 50. I'm way over. I got to see how much service I can get in before I'm done. That's the bottom line on this life. Now, did you notice the clues toward real greatness in this passage? Greatness number one, look at this on the screen. If you want to jot this down, just remember to think about it. Greatness number one is destroyed by pride. It's destroyed by pride. Jesus and John and James, as they were talking together there, when James and John, when their aspirations were revealed by their mom, well, it just destroyed the unity in the room, and everybody was all up in an uproar. They were losing their tempers with one another, and Jesus had to call them back together to say, now guys, you don't act like the world. The world has the pyramid, with that guy at the top issuing orders down. My kingdom is the other way. The greatest of my kingdom is that one that is willing to do the most serving. Second point is, greatness is discovered in service. When we serve, there is a measure of greatness that could never be anticipated. Now, you guys, I want to read you a passage, and every time I read this passage, there's a part of me that just says, could this really be true? This is the end of time. You know, if God says something's going to happen, bank on it. Anything that He says is going to happen will happen. If it hasn't happened yet, it's going to happen. Look at this passage up on the screen. This is Matthew 25. When He hears Jesus, when Jesus finally arrives, blazing in beauty, and all His angels with Him, the Son of Man will take His place on His glorious throne. Then all the nations will be arranged before Him, and He will sort the people out, much as a shepherd sorts out sheep and goats, putting sheep to His right and goats to His left. Then the King will say to those on His right, enter, you who are blessed by my Father. Take what's coming to you in this kingdom. It's been ready for you since the world's foundation. And here's why. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was homeless and you gave me a room. I was shivering and you gave me clothes. I was sick and you stopped to visit. I was in prison and you came to me. Then those sheep are going to say, Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? When did you ever see you sick or in prison and come to you? The King will say, I'm telling this solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, That was me. You did it to me. Now you guys, this is crazy stuff. But when you serve somebody that the rest of the world overlooks and ignores, somebody's watching. And it's likely, and it's not, the world ain't going to notice this. In fact, even if the world notices it, they might make a to-do about it for a little bit, but it won't last. But there is someone who's watching. When you serve somebody who's overlooked or ignored, you're actually serving the King of Kings. You're actually doing it to Him. He's the one that said this. So, greatness is discovered in service. I can't imagine anything greater than standing before the white throne of God and God to say, man, I was hungry. And you gave me something. God, you're sitting there and I'm here. When have I fed you? I was shivering cold and you gave me something to wear. I was in prison and you came to visit. Hardly anybody came to see me. But you came down to jail and you spent time with me. Y'all, somebody's watching. And when you do this stuff, that's a reward. I'm blown away by that passage. I don't have much time left. I have got to get about this. All right, that's point number 2. It's discovered in service. And point number 3, it's directed through giving. That's what Jesus said. He said, I didn't come to be served. I came to serve and to give. Specifically to give my life. I don't know how to describe this, but ever since we moved to Northwest Arkansas 2 months ago, I felt like I came home. I know we're made out of dust. Well, my grandma, Ruby, was born and grew up in a little place called Clifty. It's just 12 miles east of here. I think I made some of the dust around here. It's just Northwest Arkansas is home. Ruby and her family, Grandma and her family, decided to move to California in the 20s, I think, and thought they had more opportunity there. In the meantime, I had another great-grandmother that lived over in the Boot Hill of Missouri, and her husband was a professional riverboat gambler. They had a farm too. About the same time, they all were going to make the move together. The problem was my grandpa, he sold his farm, my great-grandpa over there, he sold his farm, and then decided that night before that he already bought the train tickets to come. Well, the night before they were to get on the train the next morning to California, he had that whole wad of money from the farm that he just sold. And he was a professional gambler. He got the best of it. So he went and bet everything and lost it all. Didn't know what to do. His wife and 2 daughters were up asleep in the hotel room. And he went in the alleyway and took his life. So my great-grandmother woke up the next morning and she's got her 2 daughters. Her husband's dead and all they have are train tickets to California. So they go. Well, Ruby goes there and grows up. This great-grandmother meets another man and has a guy named Robert Carey. Well, Robert Carey and Ruby meet each other, marry and have 2 girls. One Joe, one Judy. Joe's my aunt, Judy's my mom. As Ruby got older, Grandpa, I need to tell you a little bit about my grandpa. He had step-sisters older than him, and then his dad died right after he was born, and then he had his mother married again, and they had a bunch of family on that side. So he was the only one. He had step on both sides. And he just kind of came into this world lost, and just decided, I'm going to work like a dog, like crazy. So he got tied up with this transportation company called Superior Fast Freight. It's in Southern California. And he literally swept the floors. He came in just doing the grub work to begin with. Put himself through USC. That's why we vote for the Trojans when the Razorbacks aren't doing any good. And so there we go. He makes himself a life there. Works himself up in this company. Becomes the president of the company. They buy, this is crazy, they bought a railroad. They own their own railroad. So all up and down the coast, they're taking all of these things to all these companies. Grandpa's traveling the world. He's deep sea fishing. He's doing golfing in exotic places. He makes sure that his kids and their kids and their kids have all their education paid for. All of us went through like we had full scholarship. It was great. Well, Grandma in her 60s, she gets this terrible disease called Lou Gehrig's. Your mind stays completely intact, but your body just wastes away around you. gets to where you can't communicate. And hers was the fast growing kind that just took her in a hurry. So what Grandpa wanted to be them going everywhere and living it up and really enjoying the fruits of his labor in his retirement years, now he's clothing and he's bathing Grandma and he's scratching her where it itches and he's doing everything else for her that she can't do for herself. I just thought my grandpa was a great man. But when I saw the way he was with Grandma, I saw true greatness. It exemplifies itself through giving. Y'all, we're not here very long. We gotta be busy about this. You were made to serve. So let's do it. Let's just serve. Let's just make those decisions right now. We wake up in the morning, I've got to figure out ways that I can serve today. That's why this church exists. City Point Church exists to serve faith. We got to figure out people. And you know, you really don't need to go look. God's going to bring it. All right, let's dedicate this in prayer.